All right, it's 9 o'clock, so I will start us moving. Welcome. We've got a couple of people here with us in person and a few online with us as well. Just so everybody knows, we are live streaming onto YouTube, the Zoom, so that will be available for people to view later as well. But just so people participating in the Zoom know that right now. All right, so Dr. Bucky and I are here in person, and committee member Sarah Fox is here on Zoom as well. And so we have a short presentation to just kind of sum up the asks that are within the question 2, and then we will turn it over for questions from both in person and on the Zoom. I'll dish to you and you can kick us off.
Great. We've done a number of budget presentations and hearings and presented at town meeting, and now we're just kind of synthesizing all the information that has been out there. And one of the questions that we get most often is, why do we need the funding now? When I was hired as superintendent, there was talk of an override, and that was pre-COVID. Then COVID hit, and last year I did not think it was the right time because we had not been fully operational as a result of COVID. But this year we have done the work necessary to bring this forward to the community. So these represent immediate and ongoing needs. Many years of level service budgets have not enabled us to make investments in technology and safety, curriculum, personnel, and the needs don't go away. They build year after year, and as a result, we risk falling behind in meeting the needs of our students. And I think everybody in Marblehead would want our students to have access to an exemplary education. And if we continue to defer these needs, they don't go away, they just get more expensive.
I think a perfect example of the more expensive piece that we've known that the high school has needed an increase for a few years, and the cost of that, which is in question 1 on the ballot on June 21st, has gone up exponentially since we first were made aware of it. So that's, and all of these current asks will be more expensive if we wait until next year.
So part of what we have done during the budget development process is to make sure that these needs of the district are aligned to a 5-year strategic plan. We began that process this time last spring, and developed a comprehensive plan for success for the district. And so there are 5 pillars of that success plan: teaching and learning, professional culture, diversity, equity, and inclusion, technology, and facilities and operations. So when the principals presented their budget request and directors presented their budget request, we made sure that they would all align with the plan for success.
So this slide kind of breaks down the budget into the priorities that were set forward as some buckets with that every piece of every task goes into. Bear with me as I'm trying to manage the data as well. So first, we have safety, and they're broken down into one-time asks as well as recurring asks. And the safety piece, there's things like security camera replacements in buildings and then new installations of security cameras for schools that don't have any. There's swipe card access for doors at the high school that Mr. Bauer said would be helpful. New and more secure entry doors, a door monitor and visitor ID system at the high school as well, which has been talked about since I first started on the committee. And then additionally, replacement radios, which is another piece that has been discussed since I first started on the committee 4 years ago. Technology is another ask, and there's been a lot of technology needs over the past few years with COVID. Some of our a lot of our technology needs are addressed in the question 1, but we also have some additional technology pieces that are software needs and some tech equipment for the village school. Personnel is one of our larger items for this one, and these are not, it can be a little confusing to people at times. We hear about declining enrollment, but these are not requests for additional classroom teachers. These are requests for personnel positions that have either been eliminated in previous budgets because of level funding and still needing to pay as the cost of things go up. And then there's also additional asks for educational imperatives that have developed over the past few years that are really necessary in providing an exemplary education to our students. And again, as Dr. Buckley mentioned earlier, they do align with the strategic plan for success. So one of the personnel requests that's been most discussed is the DEI director position. And so I'm going to let Dr. Buckley explain what that person will be doing in the district.
Yeah, this is an important position as it is the strategic plan. One of the pillars of the strategic plan is work for diversity, equity, and inclusion. Actually, Marblehead is behind in this space because many districts have already incorporated a director of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Some have made it an assistant superintendent role. Others have made it a coordinator. All of our principals support the addition of this. All of our directors support. We're drafting the job description for the position, and each principal has put in how they would use this person in the work of the district. Primarily supporting classroom teachers in incorporating diversity, equity, and inclusion and social emotional learning across the curriculum to provide some instructional coaching. It's interesting, we have literacy specialists. It's not that our teachers don't know how to teach reading and writing, but the additional support is necessary. We have math specialists that go in, again, not because teachers are not adept at teaching math, but need that additional support. We have technology integration specialists. So the Director of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion, I see as a support to classroom level educators as we look in this override ask. There are a number of funding mechanisms for curriculum, funding mechanisms for libraries. So this person would help to vet those curriculum materials that are back. It would lead curriculum evaluation, as I said, for classroom libraries. Enhanced current practices for family outreach. We have a 22+% identification rate of students who receive special services. We also have students who receive 504 services. Put that together, that's about a third of the district. So we want to continuously be working to make sure that our schools are equitable and inclusive. And I think people who have been following superintendent's updates this year see that there is work to be done in this space in Marblehead. And I'll give you two examples that as a superintendent really resonated with me. The same-sex couple that scheduled a meeting with me that weren't sure if they should enroll their daughter at the Glover School in the fall because they heard that it wasn't safe and inclusive here. And that really resonated. And then there have been a number of incidents of anti-Semitism across the district this year. And to have a father call and wonder, is it safe to send my daughter to school because she's Jewish, tells me we have some work to do in this space. So for me, this is not a political appointment. This isn't a superintendent's wish. This is work that needs to be done in the district. And it's a position that is invaluable that we'll be doing forward.
I think for me, the DEI position, Sarah, I see your hand up. For me, it became much more clear when I went to the MASC and ASS conference this past fall, and I went to one of the sessions that was about diversity, equity, inclusion, and how it looks in reality in a district. And there was the superintendent and the school committee chair from the Blackstone Regional School District, and which, I don't know much about that district, but from listening to them seems to be similar demographically to Marblehead. And one of the pieces that as they started to dig in and do this type of work within their district, that they recognized off the bat was that they do a thing where they recognize kids for MCAS. And at their lower level in their elementary schools, they were recognizing boys and girls alike and pretty evenly across the board. But they started to notice that as they got up to their middle school, and particularly their high school level students, all of the boys were no longer being represented and they were acknowledging girl scores. And so it caused them to pause and say, all right, well, what is happening with our boys here? And that to me was a really poignant piece because it spoke to how this piece with diversity, equity, inclusion, and when we start to do this work, really benefits all students, not just what some people kind of fear and think is going to be very pointed and directed certain groups of students, but it really is about reaching all students. And as I would like to say, that a wonderful second grade teacher who my oldest had, Philo Watera, at the Old Bell, used to say she would check in with her students every day because if a happy kid is walking through her door, that's a kid who's ready to learn. And if a child is unhappy or has had a rough morning, she needed to do some work to get that child in a space where they were in a better mindset to be able to access the curriculum. And so when we do this type of work in all of our classrooms and across our district, it really benefits every student. Sarah.
Hi, I was just letting you know there's an echo in the background when you guys talk, and it's hard at times to understand what you're saying.
Maybe it could be the room. Not sure. It's a similar setup to what we use in the library. Do you have any ideas if there's an echo that's coming through? Okay, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we'll just continue. I'm sorry about the echo and it'll be the same or similar. Yeah, it's Frank is saying, our tech person is saying it's the room. So I'm sorry, the same or very, very similar presentation will be given at the others. So if there's pieces that are hard to find, they'll all be live streamed and on YouTube as well. Thanks for pointing that out, Sarah. And then I do see that there's a hand up. We're going to go through the presentation and then come for questions afterwards. Just sit tight with that question. All right, moving on to curriculum. This is another one of our larger asks. Obviously, we're in the business of putting forth curriculum, and so this line is particularly important because it really does touch every part of our school district. There are STEAM cards and learning materials for engineering and science supplies across buildings in the district. And this curriculum ask is broad and appropriate to address needs at every single one of our schools. We're looking to replace some science equipment at the vets that has actually been in use since before the Veterans Middle School moved to its current building when it was in place at the at the village school, which it moved from well before my time in Marblehead. Additionally, there are textbooks that we've talked about that are being used in high school that don't include 9/11 or other current events over the past 2+ decades. My son, who's a freshman, actually has one of these textbooks. And when I looked at it after it was called into question for this budget, I realized it was published within a couple of years of when I actually graduated high school. So it's time to really focus our efforts on revamping and updating these pieces of curriculum that our students are relying on for their educational needs, and that and this goes all the way down so that our youngest learners will be able to have increasingly broad library resources, and that really all of these are needs and not wants.
No, but it is all encompassing. The requests they represent from K to 12 curriculum, supplies, materials, equipment, resources, that just haven't been funded adequately over the years. So these will get the materials and supplies and equipment that our students are using up to date.
Tuition-free kindergarten. This has been, some are very supportive of this, others not so much. We do understand sort of where that balance comes out. What we really have come to with this school committee is that at the end of the day, most districts in Massachusetts do offer all-day kindergarten at no additional cost. And, for people who don't completely understand how education has changed over the past decades, kindergarten is really no longer an entry point into elementary school. Really, kids have come in, they know their letters, some know how to read already when they come into kindergarten. And so kindergarten students are expected to really have a solid understanding of reading, and that full day experience is pretty necessary at this point in order to set our youngest learners up for success as they move forward into our system. And so in the purview of the school committee, we very much feel that if it's an expectation for success, that it should cost no extra money for parents. And that, we've heard that people can come to the district and ask for support or help if they can't pay for it, but that comes with drawbacks as well, because it can be quite humiliating for people to have to come and ask for help. So where we want to move forward and have all of our students have access to the very high quality aspects of our district, we thought that it was important that the tuition-free kindergarten was added into this budget. The equipment and maintenance line is basically recurring costs that need to be adjusted for the yearly cost increases to the required contracts that we have and that we are required to maintain to keep our district buildings maintained and safe. And finally, the town benefits that are on there $497,000 recurring ask. That was actually added in at the request of the town. The town covers our staff benefits, and there was concern that with the additional personnel asks that they would not have funds to adequately cover all of those personnel. So our business director, Michelle Presta, worked with the town to come up with an amount. And so that town benefits number actually is never going to be seen in the school district's operating budget. That money, should question 2 be successful, will go straight to the town to utilize for benefits for staff in the district. So it's important that people understand that. Right. Our capital request, because this has been one that was discussed later in the budget process with the school committee. And these, we do have pieces of capital requests, or large pieces of capital requests in the town's question 1 that are very important to us. But these would be capital requests that, for multiple reasons, the town was not able to include in that capital request on question 1, and that the school committee and the school district administration thought were of importance for us to cover and maintain. A lot of the criticism that the district and the school committee has received over recent years is about not maintaining our buildings appropriately. And we have this gorgeous new building that we're sitting in, ECHO notwithstanding, and we want to really be able to maintain all of our district buildings. With the opening of this building, the ground school, we completed a 20-year master plan for facilities. And it's very important we have heard from the community that we prioritize the maintenance of these buildings so that they do last us long into the future, and that we're good stewards of the buildings that the town has given to us and allowed us to build. It's also important that we keep our buildings up so that the 21st century educational experience can be had by all of our students, even in buildings that were built, the high school was built over 20 years ago. We do have a current comprehensive facilities plan that is guiding this type of work. And so these pieces, these requests that you see before you on this slide have all been laid out in that comprehensive plan and were brought to us through our facilities subcommittee at the school committee level and encouraged that the full school committee get behind to support. One of the pieces that this also allows for us is that this would go in as a recurring cost in the operating budget. And that basically will memorializes us to have the $426,000 in some odd dollars, and that gives us that money moving forward to address the additional facilities maintenance needs that we know are of critical importance at this current time, and that were chosen to not be addressed this year, but wait until additional years. I think the number that I last saw upwards of $2.7 million that could or should be taken care of next year. Obviously, that's a massive sum, and it's basically too much work, even if we have the funding for it. But this $400,000 allows us to start to very adequately chip away at a lot of those maintenance needs in a way that we can manage as a district and memorialize them in the budget moving forward. So then I will do this slide with Dr. Buckley. This is the estimated tax impact. This slide has been talked about a couple of times. We presented it at town meeting as well, because this is an important piece for all taxpayers throughout Marblehead. This is the breakdown. So you see the average or the median single family home in Marblehead, which is $738,000, and that $310 a year is what that home or home around that value would be this override would cost. And then you see it broken down at a $400,000 home level and at a $1 million home level. If you have any questions that are particular to your direct home and what it is assessed for and what your tax burden would be, you can call over to the tax assessor's office and they will let people know for their exact address what they would be signing up for if this question passes. And I know Dr. Buckley's done some work behind the scenes, making sure that there are some abatement pieces that are widely broadcast. So, up to you.
Yeah, that was something that was very clear at town meeting. It's certainly something that is not lost on us. We do not want the override to result in anyone being unduly burdened or feeling like they can't stay in their home. I don't see it as a binary choice. People can't stay in their home and we can't have exemplary schools. But I have been working with Lisa at the Council on Aging on the Senior Citizens Tax Work-Off program. I've asked each of our directors and principals to come up with at least 2 or 3 opportunities in their schools or in their departments for tax work-off programs where seniors can come in and get up to $750 off of their tax bill, which in this slide would more than adequately cover that. I also want to work with their abatement opportunities for veterans, because that was raised at town meeting as well. So we're sensitive to requests and open to opportunities where we can support people who feel this would be an undue burden.
I love the idea of that because I think it connects the schools with the greater town and different age demographics as well, so that we can all be working together to help each other out, because each of those positions are going to be valuable positions to the school's functioning as well. And I think that sort of wraps us up. But I agree with Dr. Buckley in that it's not. It doesn't need to be a one choice or the other. That we're working really hard to make sure that this ask makes sense to all of our stakeholders. And that's one of the pieces in the school committee that from the first day I started was something to wrap my head around and really constantly come back to, is this idea that we have multiple constituencies and more so than other elected offices in the town. And that, one of those constituencies is our students who have no ability to vote and kind of have their voice known other than if we ask them. And then there are parents who are also usually taxpayers, but then there's the larger tax base within the town of Marblehead, and that each one of those groups is important and their voices deserve to be heard and recognized. And, I've been saying for quite some time, I know we need money, I just can't tell you when, and when I can tell you, we will ask. And here we are today, being able to tell people exactly what we need and why, and we are then asking for it. Sarah, I know I wasn't sure if you're going to be here, so I know John and I talked a lot. If you have anything to add before I open it up for questions, feel free to pipe in.
No, I think whatever questions come up, we can go in that direction, because I'm not quite it's always interesting what topic or what direction different people want to go in. One thing I just would reiterate is I know one as I've gone to talk to different groups, thing that keeps coming up is this idea of which portion of this was one time. And although those items are one time this year, our need for one-time funding it doesn't change. It's that those line item categories will change each year. But if you just look at it from a facilities standpoint, we did a really comprehensive facilities master plan that takes us 10 years out. If you look at that every year for the next 10 years, you'll see that we have one-time costs that far exceed what the town has historically been able to give us for the capital plan. But these embedded one-time costs will help us each year to maintain the buildings, which are an asset to the town, as well as our students. So that's just one thing to point out as well.
Thanks, Sarah. And I know one thing that we didn't touch on was a question that an audience member who's in person with us. So before I go to Emily D, I'll touch on that. Touch on it. Are the funds that have been coming into the district from the federal and state level over the past few years for COVID expenses, and how has that helped us, and where are we at with that? So, Dr. McKee, I'll go to you, and then add.
Yep. Certainly, I think there's a misperception that we got millions of dollars in stimulus funds. We got about 1.2 billion, and I'm not discounting that, but much of that money was used just to keep the doors open and the lights on during COVID. We had significant deficits in technology, so we invested in technology, got each teacher a laptop the summer that I arrived here, because teachers have laptops. At one point, we were spending tens of thousands of dollars cleaning, because at that phase of COVID, people were really pouring a lot of money into cleaning and making sure things were wiped down multiple times a day. So we have an accounting for all of those dollars. Some of that money is yet to be spent because it goes through FY24. So there are some remaining dollars.
Some of those monies did come with stipulations as to sort of where they needed to be spent, especially in some of the later iterations of the ESSER funds. Some of them are, you have to spend, I think it's 20% on mental health services or curriculum throughout the district. Others were designated towards learning loss to remedy that from pandemic lack of consistent in-time classroom. So there are some rules in which we've been required to use those funds on, and we'll continue to do so. And then some, like Dr. Buckley said, the technology pieces, where our district was, as we mentioned with all of these asks, that sort of that level of funding that was cut and kind of chipped away, particularly behind the scenes. And so we really were technologically behind when COVID struck. We needed to do a lot of work very quickly and spend quite a bit of money to get our classrooms to a level where they could sort of minimally pull off Zooms. We did not have the infrastructure to be able to, at the high school or middle school, use the OWL cameras and Zoom in the classrooms that, or the children who were at home learning on a hybrid day. And so if we had been better equipped at that point, then those monies could have been spent in different ways to really bring us up to where districts like Lexington were able to pull off their remote learning. And it's actually lessened the things that we have had to address in this budget.
And that was my other question about the technology, right? So we're able to use that money legitimately for COVID purposes. It would have come off hopefully the bigger budget.
Exactly. Yeah. So our technology ask, which is big because there is a big portion of it in question one as well, would have been even bigger had we not had all of that money come in through COVID.
That's good.
Yes, it is good news. All right. I see a hand. I don't see Emily's hand up anymore. Emily, if you want to raise your hand again, but I do see Jen has a hand up.
Yeah. Hi, Jen Schaffner, 20 Casino Road. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we're just turning a little bit on our end.
But yeah, we couldn't hear, I think it was Michelle speaking just a moment ago. I couldn't hear her at all. So no,
She-
don't know what she said.
She was just saying that her additional question was going to be about sort of how the stimulus money had brought us up and actually taken money off of what we would have otherwise needed to request.
Okay, so I had a couple of questions. The first on the curriculum, you had two different screens. You had a total screen, which is sort of like a spreadsheet, and then you had a screen specifically for curriculum. And your recurring costs had different numbers. So your slide with the breakdown of the actual curriculum showed a recurring cost of 70,341, and the sort of spreadsheet one had a recurring cost of 98,341. So I just, maybe that can get clarified at some point.
We look into that. Thanks.
So then you have under safety, you have one-time $584,900 and then recurring 32,000. So does that mean that you're expecting to have approximately $600,000 a year budgeted towards safety?
Taking into account facilities costs.
So some of those are addressed in the facilities ask that is being taken care of at the town level.
I don't understand, because in other words, this is a permanent override. So you have $584,900 as a one-time safety. But that will be an ongoing increase, permanent increase to your budget. So my question is, does that funding stay under safety, or does that just go to the general operating budget in FY24 and forward?
So I can answer that if you want, Sarah.
Yeah.
So those safety items were brought forth from the facilities committee. We put forth a very large request this year for facilities for our capital ask. We took everything from the facilities audit that was listed as critical, and we put it forth as an ask. The town came back in for the roofs and things like that. We're able to embed a lot of that, which is now which is actually on the ballot as question 1. What was left was several safety items, safety cameras at all of our schools except for security cameras at all of our schools except for Brown, which has the brand new ones. Dan Bauer wanted a new door structure, kind of to create what we have at our newer schools, like a man trap type of thing, as well as a kiosk when you check in, where people's ID would be scanned, and which would do like an immediate, query type of check. I think they're utilizing it right now at Swampscott High School, Essex Tech. Most area schools are using that type of software right now. So embedded in that 500 would be the security cameras, the build out for the man trap door, the kiosk that would be the check-in, as well as the software to run that check-in program. The reoccurring 32 is for the personnel that we will have staffing that check-in point when you come to the high school. And then where those one-time costs are, next year will go towards more reoccurring capital expenditures that each year are considered a one-time cost, because for this year it was the security cameras. For next year, and forgive me, I don't have that document in front of me, but I can pull that up and get that information to you. For next year, it may be, I know sometime in the next 4 or 5 years, we're scheduled to redo the parking lots, or the ballast in the lighting. Various one-time costs that, if we follow that facilities audit, will be one-time costs every year. But I would almost label it as a reoccurring capital investment. They are one-time costs. They're just going to be a different one-time cost every year. So this year it is those safety items. Next year it will be the next item that is scheduled on the facilities master plan for next year, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. So that actually goes into my next question. So under capital requests, you have a total of $426,407. So again, these are, I assume, will be completed next year. So then in the following years, because this is a permanent override, you'll have another 426,000. So you're going to have over $1 million a year. I guess if you include the safety, that is all going to be going into your capital spend every year.
some of the things, a large chunk of it would go to the capital. If you look at the facilities master plan, we were recommended to be, for a district our size, to be updating anywhere from 1 to 2 million a year. We, as you know, do roughly about 150 to 200,000 a year. So we have a bit of catch up on things that we've just kicked down the road for so long. But also things like we don't have, there will be, to pick another one-time cost that will come up in the next 2 years, social studies curriculum.
Jen, can you hear me?
I can hear you, Sarah. Yeah.
You just lost Sarah. All right.
So I'm just trying to determine, like, I'm just trying to bottom line it here. So it's about $1 million or over a year that will be as part of this permanent general override. And so that's a good portion of this. So my question is, it appears that you're, at least for the first year, it's going towards capital requests. And I guess the question is, how do we know in the future that it will continue to be allocated? I mean, it's not by, it's not a debt exclusion override. So it's not, by statute or by vote going to be guaranteed to go into capital improvements.
Yeah, so if that would, each year it would be addressed as to what it's funding through the budget process. So starting with the
So it's
workshop.
at the discretion of the school committee each year.
Correct. Yeah. Well, and as it's recommended from the administration.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see Sarah back on yet, so we'll give her another minute to get back on. But does anybody else have any questions? We've got a third person who joined us in person. Does anybody in our audience have any questions or online? Yes.
Last time there was a permanent.
So the question is, when was the last time that there was a permanent Prop 2.5 override for the schools? And I believe that was about 17 years ago when the entire town had a Prop 2. It was the full town ask. Yes. And we've had, our asks for our buildings within there at the debt exclusion levels. But this is really the first operating asks, large operating asks for a very long time. And, we are absolutely committed to, managing this money with fidelity. My first year on the committee was when we had a budget issue where funds were used incorrectly. And so, it's been very important to myself as well as the other committee members that I serve with to really make sure that we have hired administrators who are going to be giving us good information so that we are capable of understanding all of it and managing all of it correctly, as well as, just making sure that we're good stewards of the town's money. I strongly believe that, that although we operate in separate areas as the schools and the town, different various departments, we are one Marblehead and we all have to function together. And one of the other pieces that we do have oversight on us from the finance committee, and they are supportive of these asks, and they have understood them. We've worked with them the entire time during this process, and additionally, that we'll continue to do that. We've worked very hard over the past few years to really rebuild our relationship with the town and them with us, so that they have a deeper understanding of our budget lines. We've made information more available, or tried to. It's still a work in progress. And we'll continue to do that and try to make things more and more accessible. I was saying to one of our audience members that we will be getting to work on an area on our website that people can go to where it really streamlines all of the various slideshows that have been put forward and documents that might be really important. There were a lot of them as I was choosing the slides for this deck that I wanted to put in, but it was going to make it just too lengthy. But there's really good information that goes even further in depth than what we were able to do today. Yeah, yes.
Yeah, and so to kind of go on that comment, I think it's great that you said that, because I think it's really important. I looked at note here, so have someone that was a nurse that suddenly the manager didn't really know how to balance a budget. I'm sure it's the same with teachers, right? You suddenly become a principal. I'm sure they went to school, no principal, but I think there has to be ownership on their budgets for their schools to make sure they're trying their best to manage it well. Because operating budgets can become, they can bleed out. So to hear you say that is important. I think, you're new, Dr. Buckley, you're jumping into a situation with COVID. But I think taxpayers really want to know that the school is being, that their leaderships of all the schools are being good stewards of their budgets. And there's capital that you're asking for, but then there's operating. So obviously the pre-K, 395,000 must be an FTE, right? You're adding an extra body to teach those kids, right?
It actually, there's a lot that the audience member is saying, but I'm going to answer this question directly right now. The kindergarten, the 395 or 97, I think it is, ask is actually to cover the staffing that is usually covered by the payments for the full day kindergarten. So our current operating budget covers the staff for the half time.
Right.
The half days. And so then the funds that we collect currently for full day students go towards additional supplies and paying the professionals who are in those classrooms. So that 390 something, it will go towards what we usually recoup in the payments for full day, which can also cause wonkiness in our budget lines. This year, I don't think it happened, but in previous years, that has been a line that we've had to watch as payments either don't come in or something has changed and we've had to add a classroom or something that where we have to serve the students and provide these staff members, but it wasn't originally budgeted for and something's kind of come up that we need to do. And so that line has been one that has had to be tightly managed in the past.
Yeah, so this will eliminate that.
Exactly.
Yeah.
This will eliminate
You have
that.
people involved.
Yep, the variability in that line will be much better accounted for.
So I'm a little confused though. So you're saying that 395 is not an FTE, a full-time employee?
So it's not a full-time employee, no, it goes towards the salaries for our current full-time
They're just
employees.
gonna work.
So they actually are already working that longer
Oh, because
days,
it's
but
being paid. Got
it's the
it.
funds that
Okay.
we're recouping out of the
Gotcha.
payment for full day
Okay.
kindergarten.
Yeah,
And there's,
so that's good news.
yes, yep.
Although they'll probably learn. No, they won't. So
Nope,
that-
yeah,
it's
they
not
stay on
like
the
it's
same pay scale.
dependent, it's not- Yeah. Okay.
Yep,
All
yep.
right. It's a
Right.
win as far as I'm
It is a win, yes, yes.
Money well spent.
And thank you for the questions, because those are great questions that, because that is one that people have had a lot of kind of question marks on and explain to me, I had to pay for this, why can't we continue to do that type of thing. So there are a lot of good ideas behind why we want to move full day kindergarten as free and into our operation. All right, I don't see any other questions either online or in person. Our next budget forum, which we'll tweak up this presentation a little bit. Thank you for bearing with us as you're the guinea pigs on this one. And again, we'll work towards getting it posted online. And our next budget forum or the question 2 info session will be on June 8th. And it will be at 7 p.m. in the high school library. Hopefully we will, that room is a little bit more manageable as far as sound goes. So hopefully there will not be any echo. And we look forward to having people in person as well as on Zoom for that one. The final info session will be, I believe it's June 13th, Monday, June 13th, again, 7 p.m. at the high school library. Jen, I see you've got your hand back up.
Yeah, so for those of us who don't have children in the schools, I had no idea. I stumbled upon this link by someone I asked, but where would someone get a link to this if they are not getting messages from the school department?
Yes, so thank you for pointing that out. We had hoped to have a quorum of the school committee today, but work schedules did not allow for that. So we weren't able to actually officially post this meeting with the town. The next two, we will be able to have a quorum for our school committee, so we have them posted through the town. So if you look up on the town meeting website, that those two forums will be up there and the Zoom information will be in there as well. And we apologize, I think it was out on a couple of Facebook pages. Dr. Bucky sent it out in an email, but again, yeah, you're right, Jen, there's only so many avenues that we have. And I was talking with another committee member yesterday about possibly trying to see if there was some other way within the town that we can get these information sessions out there so that people who, again, don't have access to the regular school pieces will be able to know about them. Additionally, so each one is being live streamed and then it will live on the YouTube page. And I have been talking with MHTV about being able to have them, they will pull the Zooms off of the YouTube and put them on MHTV too, so that people can go back and listen and learn. Jen, did you have something else?
Is there any reason why you can't post the link on the school website?
We can, yes, yep. Yep, we just have to we've been working with the Office of Campaign Finance and Ethics to make sure that we're not promoting question 2. We can offer information about question 2, but we have to be very careful about it. So we are working to have a page where all of this information can live. We cannot put it up in banners on the front of our district webpage. People have to kind of be looking for it in order to access it, is what we've been told. Thank you for those questions, and thank you everyone for joining us today. We hope to see you at sessions in the future.